Hey everyone, Shabby Gamer here, and welcome to another episode of Shabby Talk. Now, last night was NXT Takeover Chicago, and what can I say about that show? It was astounding. It really was. I'm quite honestly going to say now that I think that was the best takeover I think NXT had put out. And if you look at the card, you think to yourself, well, it was going to be an alright takeover. It wasn't going to be the best, but it was going to be an alright one. But no, it blew any other takeover, in my opinion, out the water, and it blew me out the water as well. I was not expecting quality of this level. Now, the show started off with Roderick Strong versus Eric Young, a match which I wasn't too excited about, I must admit. But since the WrestleMania takeover, they've really done a great job in really bringing Strong forward and giving him a real strong personality and giving the crowd a reason to really get behind him, and that really did happen at TakeOver Chicago. The crowd were all over Strong, and Strong did very, very well, as did Eric Young as well. Strong taking out the likes of Killian Dane and Alexander Wolf, who were fantastic at ringside. They really know their role very, very well. There was one issue that I thought when Killian Dane crossbodied Roderick Strong on the outside, which was quite frankly for me right in front of the referee, but the referee sold that he didn't see it. But it was a really good match, and I think everyone played their role fantastically well. And for Strong to get the victory over Eric Young and Young to take his first pinfall loss, I think was quite a big moment for both of those in NXT. I don't think it's going to affect Eric Young too much, but it means he's not going to be looked at as unbeatable anymore. But Roderick Strong, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Roderick Strong start to move a bit higher up the card now, and maybe a Roderick Strong versus Bobby Roode NXT Championship match could be very soon in the future. Now, after that match, we had the United Kingdom Championship match. Oh my god. Oh my god. Those guys are 23 and 20 years old, I believe, if I got that right. They were insane. Absolutely insane. And for me, I'm going to be bold and say it. For me, that's WWE's match of the year so far, by far. But for me, it's possibly almost on par, if not on par, or even better than Okada versus Omega, because Okada versus Omega was a fantastic match, but it had a bit of a slow start. Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne was fantastic from start to finish. Every single second of that match was perfect. Nothing went wrong. Every single second of that match was exactly how I would have written it if I had any idea how to write a wrestling match. So it was absolutely fantastic, and the fact that Pete Dunne walked away with the championship as well, I think was spot on. Like I said yesterday on in the preview, I expect maybe Tyler Bate to get a rematch at some point. I think he'll lose the rematch, and then we might see Mustache Mountain move into the tag team division at NXT, because of course they do need some more new tag teams now, which we'll discuss a little bit later on. But yeah, Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne. If WWE are not hot on these two guys now, I don't know what they need to do. I think Pete Dunne is an unlimited potential heel on the main roster. He's absolutely fantastic. The only thing he lacks a little bit is just the acting capabilities. He's talking on the mic backstage and so forth. He's a little bit rusty on that, but in ring, the guy is about as good as anybody else in the WWE. He really is. And the two guys, you can tell they've been working together for years, because it was just fantastic. It really, really was. And I think I've never really been... I was always a big fan of Pete Dunne, but for Ty Dillinger, I was still a little bit... Not Ty Dillinger, sorry, Tyler Bate. I was still a little bit sort of like on the fence. I liked him, but I was never really overly into it, really. But yesterday night, he really won me over, and I think Tyler Bate has got a fantastic future as well in the WWE. So after that, we had the women's triple threat match. For me, probably... I don't want to say the worst match on the card, but probably not the best match on the card. It was still pretty good. They sold the story pretty well. Everyone played their roles really well as well, and it was as good as it was going to be. I think if it was a Fatal 4 with Ember Moon, it probably would have been better. The one thing I was a little bit confused about is that they have been mentioning quite a lot on Twitter that Asuka was joint undefeated streak with Goldberg, but they didn't mention that at all last night when Asuka picked up the victory, so not quite sure what they've got planned there. I sort of felt that Asuka was going to keep the belt, because I do think that Ember Moon will be the person to take the belt away from her, and I probably think that's going to end up being the next pay-per-view now. And well, I've said before, and I mentioned this to PJ Tovey, and he's mentioned it back as well a few times, I still see Asuka moving up to the main roster unbeaten. I reckon she moves up to the main roster unbeaten, vacates the championship just like Paige did all them years ago, and then when we have the women's tournament this summer, the women's tournament will be to crown the next NXT Women's Champion. I think that is the best way to move forward and it allows Asuka to move up to the main roster, still looking pretty damn solid. So after that match, we had, surprisingly enough, we had Bobby Roode versus Hideo Itami for the NXT Championship. Now, I was expecting the tag team match as much as anybody else, but obviously they held that tag team match to the end for a reason. Bobby Roode versus Hideo Itami. Again, two men that I respect. I think they're quite good, but I was never really the biggest fan. And with the past couple of takeovers, Roode versus Nakamura it was decent, but it was never, in my eyes, a fantastic match. It never came up to the quality of some of the NXT Championship main events we've had. And even Bobby Roode versus, or even Nakamura versus Samoa Joe was still, for me, it was a decent match, but it was never really the high heights I was expecting. But last night, Bobby Roode versus Itami showed that the two of them have some fantastic chemistry in the ring. They have better chemistry than Joe and Nakamura. They have better chemistry than Roode and Joe. Itami played his role fantastically well. Again, someone who I've never really... I sort of understand he's a very good wrestler, Itami, but I've never quite got the hype. But last night, I started to see why people really like Hideo Itami. He was really good. Storytelling between the two of them was fantastic as well. I think it was obvious that Roode was going to keep a hold of the championship, but I don't quite understand what they're going to do with Itami now. I saw some videos on YouTube about after NXT Takeover where Itami went into the back and went a bit crazy and was putting his hands on Cassius Ohno, and he was throwing chairs around the locker room and so forth. Is there potential for Hideo Itami heel turn? Or are we going to see Hideo go for it again on Roode? Or are they going to put Hideo to somewhere else? Maybe feud Hideo with Ohno based on what happened last night and allow someone like a Roderick Strong or a Drew McIntyre to come in and go after Bobby Roode. It's an interesting one, it really is. But I think, again, it was a pretty good match. In my opinion, and I might get some hate for this, but in my opinion, I think Roode versus Itami was probably the best NXT Championship match they've had in a couple of years. I wasn't a really big fan of the Joe versus Nakamura matches. I think they were decent, but they never really hit the heights I was expecting, and I've not really enjoyed many championship matches since Roode was in charge. I think I've liked them, and I understand how good Roode is as a storyteller in the ring, but as far as high-paced, exciting action goes inside the ring, it hasn't quite been there for me over the past few months. I'd say a couple of years, probably a bit harsh, isn't it? Probably a year. Probably since Nakamura, since Nakamura won the belt. I don't think Nakamura and Joe ever really worked for me. I don't know why. And Bobby Roode versus Nakamura never worked for me either. But then, of course, the main event of the evening was Authors of Pain versus DIY. Now, at the beginning of this match, I thought, okay, Authors of Pain versus DIY is the main event because, number one, it's a ladder match, and number two, I'm going to assume if it is the last match of the evening, then I'm going to assume it's also the last match for DIY in NXT. And I was right. It was DIY's last match in NXT. However, not for the reasons you might think. It was a fantastic match, and you know what? You look at the Authors of Pain, and you can't help but look at them and go, oh god, another two big guys going to be useless in the ring. They're just here because they look like the part. But no, they've really impressed me. And in this match, the ladder match, they were doing some fantastic spots and showing their dominance and showing their strength. They really picked their strengths and they used them fantastically well in that match. And the same sort of thing when they had that triple threat tag team match, the last pay-per-view against the Revival as well. It was pretty much spot on for what you would have hoped. And they played their part well, and I'm glad they're the tag team champions, to be honest. Who they're going to go after next, I don't honestly know. Tag teams in NXT, what have you got now? You've got TM61 are injured. You've got Heavy Machinery, which, you know what, I bloody like Heavy Machinery. I don't know why, but they're really showing some good stuff down there in NXT, but I think they're still on the up-and-coming pushed phase. And you've also got Sanity. Apart from that, I can't think of any other tag teams. That's why I mentioned earlier on about Tyler Bate and Trent Seven bringing Mustache Mountain to NXT as another face tag team. Either that or we're going to see another tag team or two debut after TakeOver in the next set of tapings, which is normally next week. But yeah, Authors of Pain for me, absolutely fantastic. And really playing their role fantastically well, as does Paul Ellering as well. And then we get on to DIY. Again, an absolutely incredible match, is what you've come used to expecting from DIY now. Everything they do just turns to gold. And this was exactly the same. And you know what? For the last 3 or 4 pay-per-views, every time that DIY lost a match, I think they've been playing this for such a long time. Because every time DIY lost a match, you could always see in Ciampa's face like he was trying to suppress rage. In every single match they lost, when they lost the Revival, when they lost the last pay-per-view, it always seemed to look like Ciampa was holding himself back, and then finally last night he let it go, and it was perfect. It really was everything that we could have expected from that situation. Because now we've lost DIY, which it's a bad thing in theory, because DIY are probably one of the most over tag teams they've had in NXT in a very, very long time, and they're both fantastic wrestlers. But you've got to think that when they came to NXT, they were both singles competitors. They were both fantastic wrestlers from the independent scene. Gargano was the longest reigning ever Dragon Gate USA champion, and Tommaso Ciampa held the Ring of Honor Television Championship and quite a lot of other belts across the indie scene as well. So the fact they've split them up, it makes me happy to know that WWE are not trying to stick these two guys together for their entire careers, and hope they just keep getting over, because they know they're both quality singles competitors. So this singles feud now, I think, is going to be incredible. You've seen how good they are together in the ring, and now we get to see how good they are against each other. We saw it, of course, in 205 Live last year in the tournament, and it would not surprise me if these two guys end up coming up onto 205 Live pretty soon as well as singles competitors. And it's going to be a really good feud, and probably a really brutal feud as well. Just watching it last night, watching the Ciampa attack, some of those knee strikes, and the air raid slam off the announce table through those tables as well. It was very brutal. It was very, very stiff work by Tommaso Ciampa, and I think this is going to be the start of probably one of these standout feuds in NXT for the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, what else can I say about NXT Takeover Chicago? I was a little bit disappointed that Cassius Ohno wasn't on the card, Drew McIntyre wasn't on the card, and Aleister Black wasn't on the card. But then again, it probably was the best thing, because if those guys had been on the card just in squash matches like they have been recently, then it probably wouldn't have been as entertaining. I want to see proper matches where people are competing against each other. And don't get me wrong, I loved seeing Aleister Black's debut on the last NXT Takeover. However, it wasn't an exciting match to watch. It was a good moment to see Aleister Black debut, but it wasn't exciting because we all knew what was going to happen. We all knew that he was going to squash someone. So it was probably good in the same way. I think they all did dark matches before the show, which are being recorded for next week's NXT, but we'll see them very, very soon. And the only other thing is, it's the Chicago crowd. They were incredible last night. The Chicago crowd was absolutely perfect, and I wondered what was going to happen with the Chicago crowd, especially with Hideo Itami, because of course Hideo Itami using the GTS as his finishing maneuver, CM Punk using the GTS as his finishing maneuver. Being in Chicago, I thought this could get a bit dodgy, but I actually saw quite a few occasions where a small group of the crowd started a CM Punk chant, and the rest of the crowd turned around and booed that section of the crowd, because they know it's disrespectful to the guys in the ring. And there's no reason in a match between Bobby Roode and Hideo Itami, where both guys are putting it all on the line and having a fantastic match, there's no reason for the crowd to be shouting CM Punk. What's the point? There's absolutely no point now. It's not going to help anyone. All you're doing is insulting the two guys in the ring. And luckily the majority of the crowd sort of put the rest of the crowd in their place on that one, but they were fully invested in every single match. They cheered everyone. They weren't dead. It was absolutely fantastic, and I hope to see some more stuff from Chicago, because they are really top class, and I'm assuming that's where Backlash is from tonight as well. But yeah, good luck SmackDown. Good luck SmackDown trying to follow that. You have got no chance. No chance at all. You look at the card, and then for Backlash we've got Randy Orton versus Jinder Mahal. Enough said. Right, that is the end of this Shabby Talk. I hope you have enjoyed it. I've got a bit passionate into this one because of how much I enjoyed that pay-per-view, and I'm hoping that came across in the video as well. Of course, if you haven't liked this video, then if you've liked it, then like it, if that makes sense. And of course, subscribe if you want to see some more. We've got some more coming up with PJ Toby coming up over the next couple of weeks as well, so be sure to keep an eye out for those. And yeah, I've been Shabby Gamer. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you all very, very soon for another Shabby Talk. Bye.